Hi, I'm Paul. So I decided to make a video for those who are either considering buying their first digital camera or for those who may have a low-end digital camera and considering upgrading. So I also created a PDF that you can download, and it goes over a lot of the camera basics, and I tried to keep it as short and as simple as possible. So you don't need to give away any information like an email address or anything like that to download the PDF. It's just a link, and hopefully this will help you make a decision about what you should do. Okay, so this is the PDF, and I'm going to follow along with it as we go through the video. So one thing that you need to keep in mind is that when you're watching content creators review camera gear on YouTube or other platforms, they're primarily professional photographers. I am not a professional photographer. I'm just an amateur and a hobbyist. So just like the statement that I put at the top of this PDF, pro photographers, professionals that are reviewing camera gear, they have different standards than we do. And it's understandable because they're being paid for their work and they're trying to produce a really high quality product, which usually doesn't apply to people like you and me. So there's different types of camera sensors. And if you look at the PDF, I put links to two videos. There's Wolf Amri and Tony Northrup. They both did incredible videos that explained the difference between APSC, which is also called crop sensor cameras or crop sensors, and full frame cameras. And Tony also went over the micro four thirds, which is even smaller. But these two videos, if you watch them, and they're only about, Wolf Amri's was less than 15 minutes. I don't remember how long Tony Northrup's was, maybe about 20 minutes or so. But if you watch these two videos, you'll have a great understanding about the differences between crop sensors and full frame sensors. But you also need to keep in mind these videos were created 3 to 4 years ago. And the advancements in the technology of the APS-C or crop sensors has just gotten much, much better than they were, to the point where even these pros, for the most part, says there's very little difference between them. But you'll get a really good understanding. So I'm just going to scroll through the PDF briefly. It's 8 pages long. I've kept the definitions and the information as short and as simple as possible. So, but you'll have a really good understanding, a much better understanding. And again, the PDF is completely free. There's just a link that'll be in the description, and the link description of this video, and the links for the videos by Wolf Amri and Tony Northrup will be in the description of this video also. So the first link will take you right to the video, and the second link is for their channel, because they do great reviews of things, of cameras and camera gear. So again, there's fixed lens cameras, and there's interchangeable, there's DSLR, there's mirrorless. That's the new technology now. This is the 6th of January of 2024. I list the different sensor sizes, prime lenses, zoom lenses. What you'll hear the term a fast lens, which just means that it has a really wide aperture. There's this exposure triangle. And what that means is you have your shutter speed, your aperture, which is the lens, how big or how small the opening is in the lens, just like the pupil of your eye. The larger the pupil of your eye, the more light comes in, the smaller, the less amount of light, and then your ISO, which a lot of photographers, even professionals, refer to as ISO. It's not an acronym. It's actually ISO. So I put the link to Paltatech. I don't know what his name is, but he's primarily Fuji cameras, but he did a really good video that explains the exposure triangle. It applies to all cameras, not just Fuji. He's just kind of like me. I own Fuji cameras and Nikon. I explain white balance, dynamic range, low light performance, the bokeh, the background blur that you get, and there's subtle differences between full frame and crop sensor cameras. And then a little breakdown of the full frame sensors, the features, the characteristics. Same thing with the APS-C. I did the same thing and explaining the crop factor. And then JPEG images, raw photos, and all these cameras, whether it's the older DSLRs or the newer mirrorless, you can either take a JPEG, which means the camera is going to do the best job it can to process the image so it looks as good as possible. Raw images just means it's just letting the light in, and then you will use something like Photoshop or some other editing type of software to enhance it. A raw photo, even though it's in color, it's kind of flat, and I call it basically a digital negative. And then I put some information in there about video, description about high definition video, 4K video. Pretty much every camera now, and even the older DSLRs, a lot of them will do 4K, but they all do high definition. And here's where I explained the ISO. It's an organization for standards for a lot of things, not just cameras. And I put some information in there where you can go and you can look it up if you want to, but it just means, so what the ISO does on your sensor, if there's not enough light and you need to brighten it up, it actually puts like an electric charge across it. It tries to enhance it and usually does a really good job, but too much can cause distortion, or what they used to call film grain. But a lot of software like Photoshop, and there's others, there's open source, some are free to use, some have a small fee. But especially with the AI now, the artificial intelligence, even if you have a lot of noise in your image, the software like Photoshop will just clean it up and make it look beautiful. So now I've got some just advice for beginners. And if it was me, if I was starting over, and when I bought my first camera, it was a Nikon D5500. It was a crop sensor camera. Anything 16 megapixels to 24 megapixels will be great. I would use, if I had a choice, I would use a 35. I buy a 35 millimeter prime lens. I would not buy a camera with a kit lens because those are usually lesser quality, no matter who you buy it from. So my suggestion would be just to buy a camera body. You can also buy used gear. I've got information further down in the PDF about that. So a 50 millimeter lens on a full frame camera is really close to how humans see the environment around them. So if I'm standing somewhere and I'm just looking straight out at some kind of a landscape or something, 50 millimeter is pretty close to what the human eye sees. There is a crop factor with the APS-C sensors, and it's basically multiplying it by 1.5. So to get that same field of view for a crop sensor camera, you would use a 35 millimeter camera, and it would be just like you were using a 50 millimeter on a full frame. Memory card sizes, they're pretty cheap. I usually buy 64, and I did make a typo in here. It's got 32, 64, and 12 gigabyte. I'll update the PDF. It really should be 128 gigabyte and then 256. So I'll fix that. To start out with, just shoot in JPEG. Don't do RAW. Let the camera do the work. And you can put it in auto mode where the camera will figure out what the ISO and the shutter speed and the aperture setting will be, just to get started. Also, most of these cameras, you can add a shoe mount. A lot of cameras come with a flash, a built-in flash that's on top. They're usually okay, but they're not great. You can buy what they call a shoe mount. It just mounts right to the top of the camera. Purchase a good wrist or neck strap. Most cameras come with a neck strap. I prefer wrist straps, and ones that will have a quick disconnect. They'll just snap on and off. The camera should do at least high definition, and pretty much they all do. The high definition HD, it's referred to. And a lot of them, if not all now with the mirrorless, I believe, also do 4K. Tripod is optional if you need a long exposure where you're going to have the aperture open for a second or several seconds. And there's open source software. Even Photoshop has like a free version of the regular Photoshop. It doesn't have nearly as many features, but you can get it. So I also put some information in here for new, where you can buy new and used camera gear. So Adorama and B&H Photo sell new and used. Same thing, you can buy it off of Amazon. Adorama and B&H on their used camera gear, and as well as KEH, they sell, I believe, strictly used camera gear. They rate the condition of the camera or the lens or the other gear, so you can helps you make a better decision on if you should buy it or not. I purchased my first Nikon D5500 new. I bought a second one used. It looked just like brand new when I received it. Had absolutely no problems at all with it. And then I also later bought a Nikon D5600, which was just an upgraded version, and I bought that used, and it looked and works just like new. So then at the end of the PDF, there is some links for some open source software or photo editing software that have free trials. So you can take a look at those. I haven't really used any of them. I only use Photoshop, but I looked this up on some reviews, and all of these had really good reviews. Okay, so little show and tell. So in the PDF, I mentioned about interchangeable cameras with interchangeable lenses and fixed lenses. So one type of camera that has a fixed lens, that it's called a rangefinder. So this is, and you can see right there, it says rangefinder on this dial. So this camera, this lens does not come off. And this is an old camera. It's an old film camera. I found it in an antique store. So they still make rangefinder cameras. There's Ricoh makes just a point and shoot. Fujifilm makes a really good rangefinder. It's the X100V. but you can't remove the lens. And I believe it's either a 27 millimeter lens that's on it. So instead of that, and I did a video about this camera. This is my Fujifilm X-T30, and this is the second version of it. And this has what you would kind of consider a rangefinder lens. So this is a 27 millimeter lens. And the reason I prefer this is because this lens will come off, and you can put a different lens on this camera. You can put a zoom lens or whatever you want on it. But this is a great little lens because it's called a pancake lens because it's so small. But this is a great little camera and lens for just walking around. I mean, if you're on vacation, it's light. The other now this is the only, and this is a crop sensor camera, the X-T30. I don't have any full frame mirrorless cameras, but this is a Fujifilm X-T4, and it's a much larger camera body, and it's a little bit heavier. But if you're just a hobbyist or just an amateur and you just want to use this a camera for vacations, this is a great camera. It also does 4K video. And I use that more than any other camera. The older DSLRs, so this is my Nikon D5600. So it's a larger camera body. The older DSLRs are just a little bit bulkier. But this is still nice, but in comparison to my Fujifilm with the pancake lens, it's you can see that there's a difference. And then this is a full frame camera. And compared to this camera, this thing is a beast. I mean, it's a great camera. It's the Nikon D750, which is the older DSLR. It has a mirror. The DSLRs have a mirror in between the lens and the sensor. So they're much bigger than if you would compare it to a mirrorless camera. But this is a crop sensor camera, where this is a full frame camera. So this has a 50 millimeter lens on it, and this is a lens that's made for a full frame camera. This my Nikon D5600. This is what Nikon calls it a DX. It's made for a crop sensor camera, although it will fit on the full frame body. It's called an X mount. That's just an F mount, where Fuji's calls theirs X mount, and then Canon's got their own type, and Sony has their own name for their mounts. It's just that if you put a crop sensor camera lens on a full frame body, there'll be a dark circle because the back of the lens doesn't cover the entire sensor on the full frame. The back of the lens is a little bit too small. And that's explained in the video by Tony Northrup and Wolf Amri. So again, go watch those videos, download this PDF, and if you like the video, if you could please give it a like. And if you have any comments, if there's something you think I should add to this PDF, I can always update it. So I hope this helps you make your decision. And thanks again for watching.